Listen well, friends. Draw near like embers on a cold night. Because when the drum speaks, the wind itself leans in. And tonight the drum is telling the story of Amma, the daughter of morning buses, the sister of market laughter, the one whose steps were honest even when corridors were not. In a city of steel and sky where clouds wore neckties and the sun signed contracts on glass, there stood a tower called Mirage, a place so high even hawks felt humble, and in its throat lived a private lift that purred like a satisfied leopard. A lift that knew names, weighed intentions, and opened only to those whose shadows carried permissions. They said if you pressed its button without the blessing of status, the tower would spit you out like a seed. But that day was a day of small surprises, and small surprises, child, are the ants that move mountains for Amma, with a blue folder bright as a kingfisher's back and a deadline that chased her like noon heat. Found the common elevators swollen with impatience while the private door glittered alone. The guards away escorting visiting shoes that clicked like rain on a tin roof. And the hallway watched as Amma read the sign, authorized only, and heard inside her the proverb her grandmother used to hum. When the river bends, it is only following an older story. So she pressed the forbidden bell, a gentle chime in a large cathedral, and when the doors whispered open, she stepped into a light that climbed the walls like a prayer. Not to steal privilege, but to deliver a message. Not to show pride, but to keep her word. And as the doors drew shut like lips holding a secret, destiny, longer than roads, deeper than wells, cleared its throat. O listener, in our towns and bush paths we know this. There are spaces you do not cross, and ladders you do not climb unless the elders call your name. Palaces kept courtyards where only the chief's sandals kissed the dust. Shrines kept thresholds where even the termites walked softly. And in the modern city, the private lift is that old threshold dressed in steel. Yet remember the gourd that floats downriver. Do not mock it, for the water also carries stones. Amma felt the truth of that proverb as the cabin hummed and the screen, blank of numbers, glowed like the moon when it hides its face. And she breathed the market into her chest. Bread at dawn, paper's dry rustle, bus conductors bargaining with time, and whispered, "Let me reach only the 28th floor," while the lift, like a patient elder, tested her heartbeat for arrogance and found only duty. Outside, the corridor eyes gathered. Tongues warmed themselves over gossip fires. Who is she? What is she? Whose cousin does she think she is? And the rumor mill clapped its hands like a wedding drummer. For people love a punishment more than a proverb. And they love a fall more than a climb, and they love to point before they understand. But the old stories teach that shame often arrives first, while honor walks with a staff, steady and late. Inside the moving box, Amma touched the blue folder like a talisman and remembered her mother's voice. If you must err on the side of sincerity, and if the gods rebuke you, they will at least recognize your clean intent. And the lift stopped with the sigh of a calabash placed on a mat. And the doors parted not into thunder, but into quiet carpet, where footsteps left no footprints, where the air smelled like new agreements and old money, and the receptionist's eyes widened as a drum stretched too tight. And in that tightening came the first echo of the crowd's verdict. Firing, firing, firing. Know this, kin of the story, the day that brings your test never carries a herald with a trumpet. It comes as casually as a lizard warming itself on a wall, and if you blink, you will mistake it for normal weather. Amma walked with her spine like a straight road, laid the folder on a desk where pens sat like soldiers, and said, "For legal," her voice respectful, her shoes quiet, her badge shining with the small pride of someone who likes to do things right. But the receptionist's whisper flew like a seed to a whirlwind. Security was called, managers were pinged, and in the atrium below, the gossip had already birthed twins. One named "She's Finished," the other named "She's Arrogant." Between these twins, truth often lies in a hammock waiting for cool shade. The guards arrived with faces carved in basalt, yet they found Amma neither boastful nor begging, only steady, and steadiness confuses those who came to enjoy spectacle. "You cannot be here," said one, as if naming rain forbidden would dry it up. "I came because the deadline would not wait," she replied. "And the common lifts were chewing people whole. Forgive the crossing. I will accept your rebuke." Only ensure the document reaches its owner on time." And her words were a calabash of clean water in a room of smoke. Even the reception desk felt it. Here was not a thief of privilege, but a courier of responsibility. Still, protocol must speak, just as thunder must follow lightning. So they escorted her to a quiet waiting room, a place where clocks ticked with expensive patience. And someone said the billionaire himself had been informed, which is to say the chief has sent for the stranger at the gate. And in that sentence hung the audience's hunger for a public lesson, that the small must remember their smallness, that doors are hieroglyphs not everyone can read. But the griot reminds you, the tortoise carries its house not to boast, but because journeys are long. Do not rush what the drum unfolds. The owner of the tower was a man the city described with incomplete sentences. He is... and the rest was smoke. He wore suits whose stitching quarreled with perfection and lost. He kept calendars that frightened even calendars, and he believed in two things: the sharpness of a promise kept and the quiet weight of character. When he stepped into the waiting room, the air adjusted its spine. The guards saluted the way trees lean for wind, and Amma stood with her hands clasped, not defiant, not crumbling, simply present. And what leader does not recognize presence when he sees it? "You used my lift," he said, his voice the temperature of cool iron. "Yes, sir," she replied, "and I am ready for your correction." And that sentence was a mat rolled out for truth to sit upon. Because guilt and arrogance are noisy, but sincerity prefers a quiet room. "Why?" he asked, and she told him simply, the crowded common lifts, the urgent folder, the belief that if a thing must be done, delay is also a kind of disrespect. The billionaire listened the way a hunter listens to long grass, hearing not only the words, but the footsteps inside them. He asked no further questions, only said, "Come," and led her into the private lift again. The guards puzzled, the corridor holding its breath like a drum before first strike. They rose, and in that ascent, the story braided itself to an older rope, the one that tied sacred corridors to virtues unseen, and chiefs who knew how to read not the dust on your sandals, but the wind in your eyes. The doors opened to the top floor where the city lay below like a map of fireflies. And in a hall lined with quiet art, he turned to Amma and said, "Some doors are forbidden to frighten the foolish. Some are forbidden to test the brave. Do you know which you walked through today?" And Amma, remembering her grandmother's moon-bent stories, answered, "I walked through duty, sir, and if I have offended, the offense is honest." And the billionaire nodded as if a river had confessed its source. "Gather closer, because here the path twists where bushes thicken." Beyond the glass wall, the weather practiced being beautiful. Inside the office, the billionaire took the blue folder, scanned its contents with a gaze that weighed paragraphs like yams, and found that Amma had not only rescued a deadline from the crocodile of delay, she had corrected a small error with a pencil note, respectful but precise. And he smiled the way palm wine smiles at a clean calabash. "You are new," he said. "Yes, sir," she answered. "Where did you learn to speak like that to Trouble, as if Trouble were a child who could be reasoned with?" And she told him of mornings in the market where coins argue, of bus stops where patience is the ticket collector, of mothers who measure honesty like millet and say, "When you carry truth on your head, the rain becomes your friend." And the billionaire laughed a little, surprising even himself, because big people often forget that big laughter needs only small reasons. He touched a panel on his desk and a screen bloomed with faces of department heads, their titles long enough to wrap a goat, and he said, "We have here someone who walked into a rule with clean feet. I am sending her to logistics after this and later to legal. Let each of you test her with real work. If your hearts are satisfied, we will speak again." And the faces muttered like a distant river. They had assembled to witness a dismissal, a ceremony the city secretly loves, but the script had shifted, and scripts dislike being surprised. Yet the griot warns, when judgment arrives too early, wisdom arrives late and tired. Amma bowed a little because a bow carries gratitude better than words, and the billionaire, without turning, added softly, "Also, tell whoever gossiped that gossip is a short blanket. It leaves the feet cold. Now we come to the place where tongues will say they saw what they did not see. When the lift brought them down to the atrium, the crowd stirred like a pot, noticing fire, and silence hovered, noisy with prediction. The billionaire did not let silence grow weeds. He walked to the center where the tiled floor kept everyone's reflection and spoke so that even the echoes stood still. A moment ago, you rehearsed a firing in your heads. Instead, learn a proverb. A road that denies good feet will one day be ashamed of its own dust. And then, because a leader's words must wear clarity like a clean shirt, he took Amma's hand, not as a boss takes a subordinate, not as a hawk snatches a chick, but as a witness takes an oath, and he said for all to hear, "This is Amma." Today she delivered duty wrapped in courage. When I meet courage, I call it by its rightful name. In the language of my house, when a person's spirit aligns with yours, when their fortitude keeps your promise standing, we say, "This one is wife," and the atrium gasped like surf meeting rock. For the city prefers scandal to semantics. Yet the elder smiles because he knows that wife, in many tongues, is not only marriage but alliance, not only romance but recognition, not only ceremony but covenant. Hear me well. The billionaire did not claim a bride of law, he proclaimed a partner of purpose. He renamed the relationship between institution and character, and Amma, who understood the heavier meanings of lighter words, answered with a bow of the spirit, "Then I will keep the house of duty swept." And in that exchange, the crowd learned or refused to learn, as crowds do, and the news ran out of the building faster than midday heat. She entered the billionaire's private lift. Everyone expected firing, he called her, wife. But a tale that ends with applause teaches only vanity. Come sit on the wiser side of the fire where the coals speak slower. What did we see, children of story? Status against virtue, protocol against providence, public spectacle against private reading of the heart. Long before cities learned to touch the sky, our courtyards divided space. There was the earth for every foot and the corridor for the chief's sandals alone. Those lines were not drawn to humiliate, but to remind us that power is a dangerous wine. You do not gulp it uninvited. Yet the same elders told another truth. Sometimes the gods hide tests behind taboo. And when a soul crosses for the sake of duty and not ego, the shrine recognizes kin. Amma's crossing was not the peacock's strut, but the messenger's run. The billionaire's response was not the tyrant's thunder, but the reader's nod. And the word wife, as he used it, braided meanings. Steward, ally, backbone of the house when the wind throws stones. In your own life, you will meet such doors. A meeting room where no one has asked you to speak. A problem everyone is ignoring because blame is a hungry dog. A moment when your small name is the only name watching. Cross with clean intent and unshaking humility. And if rebuke greets you, accept it as rain. But if recognition greets you, do not clap for yourself. Pick up the broom and sweep better than before. Hear another proverb. Thunder makes announcements. Rain grows the yam. Be the rain! The drum is cooling now, but the night still listens, so take this ending like cola nut. Bitter to wake you, rich to keep you company. The city will keep talking because cities are big mouths. They will keep twisting what they heard because echoes are mischievous and screenshots wear quick shoes. Some will say the billionaire married a stranger in the lobby. Some will say privilege rewards disobedience. Some will say the word wife was a trick. But those who sit near the fire of sense will remember that a house stands on pillars you cannot photograph. Honor, courage, clear intent, a promise kept when nobody is filming. Amma returned to her desk that day not as a queen on a parade, but as a steward sharpening a hoe, and work found her like rain finds seeds. Departments tested her, deadlines tried to bully her, and she discovered that recognition is only a lamp. You still must walk. As for the billionaire, he added a new rule to the old steel door. This corridor is forbidden to vanity, but open to necessity carried with humility. And if you find yourself under a roof where gossip is the loudest drum, put wax in your ears with this final proverb. A short blanket leaves the feet cold. Cover one another with long cloth. Call courage by its rightful name. And when fate tunes its talking drum in your lobby, may you have the ears to hear what is truly being said. Now go, child of the screen and the street, and let your steps be honest even when corridors are not. For when the river bends, it is only following an older story, and those who keep their water clean will reach the sea. I have spoken.